salespeople waking up to the fact that they don't necessarily have to work for that organization. Okay. I woke up to this fact October 2019. After that company let me go, I just did pulling out the old playbook, dust off my resume. Okay. Start, applying for jobs, looking for directors and VP of sales and stuff like that. Went through some interviews, had some great interviews, and then it just gobsmacked me. It's like, I'm going to be walking right back into the same thing.
Awesome, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of It Is What It Is, the best business-tainment podcast on the market. You know how you connect with me. Follow me on Instagram at CVMK33, TikTok CVMK Global, YouTube. Subscribe to the page below at CV_K. And you know what I'm going to say. We're the best pre-workouts, protein, vegan proteins, BCAAs, sports, supplements, and drips at www.cvmkglobal.store. I have one with me right now, Super Power, which is an amazing pre-workout. And just, you got to support the business. You got to check it out. Let me know your thoughts. But we have an amazing guest who's really going to just talk to us about the world of sales, everything they're doing, everything that needs to be done. We're going to go there. And with that being said, Scott, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Cody. I am happy to be here. It is another day in paradise.
That's it. I like to hear that. Scott, before we get into it, I want the audience to know a little bit about you so they get a feel of who you are, and then I'm going to hit you with these questions. But let us know kind of, who are you? What are you about?
Right. Okay, so a little bit of background about me then. Really, I started off as a collegiate athlete. And I went to Texas A&M University on a track and field scholarship. I was a discus thrower, and all I ever wanted to be was an Olympian. And when that did not really happen for me, then I figured, you know what? I'm going to coach Olympians. I'm going to be a collegiate coach. And coming out after graduating in 1994, I'm a little bit old. I'm pre-2000. Okay, so. Coming out in 1994, I was looking for a coaching position. I knew I could not do it at the high school level. My dad was a high school coach, and he has just these unexhaustible patience. And I just knew that if I got into high school coaching, I'd probably strangle somebody or hurt them real bad and end up in jail. Okay, so I was like, okay, I'm going collegiate. I got to do it collegiately. I just don't have the patience for the high school, middle school thing. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen. And so even though I had some of the best references and put out 80, 90 resume, applications to different schools all over the U.S., nobody, not one person even replied to me, even to say thanks, but no thanks. So I had to put my degree to work, and my degree was finance. I was, I wanted to, go to be a coach. I knew I wasn't going to make much money. And so I wanted to learn how to make my money work for me. And so I became a stockbroker here in Houston. And, I've been in sales ever since. I got out of the finance world about 2001 after the internet bubble blew up. And I started taking my sales skills into corporate America, started working with large organizations, started working with small organizations, did greenfield type of business development, opening up new markets for companies. And now I consult. Now I consult with small and mid-sized businesses how to optimize and grow their sales departments and their selling function. So that's me in a nutshell.
I like that. That has opened up Pandora's box. And I really, because your story is almost mirroring mine.
Okay.
Before we get into it, we have just a quick word from our sponsors.
There's a hero in all of us waiting to be unleashed. All it takes is just that one last push. Activate the hero within with CVMK Global Supplements. All natural, steroid-free, designed to enhance performance, build muscle, and increase energy. You are unstoppable. You can do this. Become your own hero at www.cvmkglobal.store.
Awesome, man. We're back. So you know what it is, www.cbnkglobal.store. Look, so listening to your story, you went from disappointment, basically. You had all these aspirations, and then you also had this educational component, and then you kind of ended up in sales. Very similar to my story. I think I had one trajectory, but it just seemed like everything that I wanted to do just didn't come to pass. And then I found myself in a loan equity company, and I was on the phone smiling and dialing, and now I'm here, right? Hey, so it's weird kind of how opposition can create the path forward. My question is, with all your experiences, how did you stay in it and it not create any, and maybe I'm assuming too much, but how did you stay in it with a positive attitude?
Well, being an athlete, there's the constant experience of failure. And I don't care who you are, what level of professionalism you are. You have to learn to deal with failure regardless. If failure is going to stop you in athletics, it's going to be a short career. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Look at his story, right? It's just unbelievable. And so I had a lifetime of lessons there, having to deal with failures and having to overcome them, and then having to just move on, put them behind me and just move on. And so the way that I kept that positive attitude, quite honestly, I almost did not last my first 30 days in my stockbroker's role. I had to make 300 dials a day, talk to 30 people a day, close 3 deals a day, all to give to my senior broker while I was studying for my Series 7 exam. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I knew I could talk to people, but man, I hated trying to sell people stuff on the phone. It was the worst experience of my life up to that point in time. And then I found a book. One single book changed the entire trajectory. And I still remember it. I still got it in my bookcase over there. It is Prospecting Your Way to Sales Success by Bill Good. It was originally written in like 1985 or 1987, I think. And man, it flipped everything, changed the entire trajectory. I was trying to sell everybody. I was trying to convince everybody I talked to that they needed to do business with me, when really, I really needed to flip the script on that and just find the people who were interested, disqualify the 90% who would never do business with me anyways, and just find the 10% who said, yeah, hey, you know what? I'm kind of interested in what you have to say. Tell me a little bit more about it. And those were the people to spend my energy, my physical energy, and my emotional energy on. That was the trick early on in my career. And by the grace of God, right? I found that book. I found it in an Amazon when they had the original bookstores, walking through it, and it changed everything.
I like that. I think professional development is so needed. I know earlier in my career, and even now, and like I just finished Legendary by Tommy Breedlove. He's an executive coach, coaches CEOs, and really, the focus on organizational development and really how to bring out the best inner qualities of a human being. I've read almost everything by Jeb Blunt because I wanted to be successful, right? Like I wanted to figure this out. In selling, you name the methodology. I've tried to do some type of investigative research on and really, implement that in my repertoire. But the frustration, and you hit upon it, is that we all had to cut our teeth, right? Like you mentioned the 300 calls a day. I remember it was a standard. Like you couldn't leave unless you had 100 calls, a couple loans, not just applications, but actually executed, coming to, signing, receiving the, deliverable. And the frustration of this constant day in, day out grind to get somebody to say yes. That was the agonizing thing. I mean, the joy in completing something was reward enough. Mm-hmm. But the frustration to find that one person, that one human being that was like, you know what, I'll do it, and you not get cussed out in the process, so that was the most agonizing part of sales. And this is where I had to drive it. Do you think, and this is where I think the conversation is going to go up a notch, there is an appreciation for sales professionals? Like, do you honestly think, the truth, like, the grind to really authentically prospect? Is there a true appreciation for a hunter?
By certain people, I would say in general, no.
Okay.
People, in general, I think, let's say society at large, the business world at large, they believe the hunter is just born with it. That that's just their skill. That's just they're good at that. That's what they do, and they're overpaid anyways for what they do. And I think that the real appreciation comes from those people who tried to be the hunter, who tried to learn that skill set. And that's something that we're doing now, even inside of our own organization, is we're training people to learn that sales hunting skill. And they think, well, okay, well, just give me the leads and I call them. I said, no, that's not how a hunter works.
No.
You find your own leads. And let me show you some places where you can get it. And here's how you make a script. And then here's how you start executing that script. And here's how you rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, right? Day in, day out. This is how you do it. It's not given to you. Nothing's given to the true hunter. You got to go out and find it and kill it, and then you get to eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. I totally agree. I think that, and I agree with you, there's a false narrative that you can just train anybody to do this, that, we're a dime a dozen, we're a cog in a wheel, and, you can just tell somebody, teach them how to sell, teach them how to have the integrity, the personality, the in-depth research, that really goes into prospecting, the long hours, the early mornings, the late evenings. And the reality is you can create a blueprint, but if it doesn't align with the person's inner values, it does not matter. You are either born a hunter or you're not. Nobody can teach you how to work hard. Either you want to work hard and you want to be the best, or you're going to be like, please, So you talked about, you're in your organization, you're trying to create this culture. So how do you do that? Like, how can you identify if somebody really has it or not?
Well, first of all, I come from the premise that I will hire for character and train for skill. Okay, I want to hire, will-do people. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, I don't care too much for the can-do. The can-do means, hey, I'm skilled, I'm capable. Okay, that's fine. I can find a lot of capable people. But if you're not willing to do what needs to be done to accomplish the goal, to be a part of the team, then that's of no use to the team. So I come from that premise. I want will-do people, number one. And I use assessments to try to get that. And really, even our recruiting, our screening process is nothing but will-do type of hurdles. I put everything. I don't try to attract candidates. The candidates, as they go through the process, they have to make the steps. And if they don't make the steps, then they're very simple steps and not very complicated steps. Then they're not will do kind of people. That work ethic, again, you can't teach that. It can be learned. And I've got two sons. I've got both of whom I love tremendously, right? I've got my older son who's got a lot of talent. He's very artistic, I guess that's left brain side, right? And he's also ADD, and I never really understood that, and I really had to work to try to understand. Well, how come you can't just focus, right? So he's the kind that very talented in all the sports and in everything that he did, but he just didn't really have the drive and desire, the will, that will do for it. Now, my younger son, on the other hand, that guy's a grinder. He learned to grind, and he grinds, and he grinds, and he has no problem with the grind. And there's a great story brewing out of him in the next year or so. They're both at Texas A&M University. I did not make any. They did that on their own accord, not because of me. But it just shows how even two children from the same parents, can be even a little bit different. So there is something to being born with that work ethic, because believe me, I've done my best that I could to work at it, teach that work ethic. But at some point, some people it just doesn't happen. And that's what we look for. We want to look for that work ethic. We want to look for the will-do people.
I like that. Looking for the will-do people. I really appreciate that story. Congratulations on also, your son's being at Texas A&M. I know that's huge.
It's expensive.
Yeah. I know. I look at my student loans and I said, "Oh God," So that just went to a small Catholic university. So but when we talk about those will-do people, right? Yeah. Organizations. I wonder is there a true, and not, and this is very general, but are the systems in place to create a shift in the sales workforce? Like, is it really a focus on, like, okay, once you identify the will do, right? Like this person, they have all the intangibles, right? Forget the skill set. They just have the character, the depth, the they just have all the intangibles to really be a will do, a leader out there, and a generator of just activity and production. What stops an organization, in your opinion, from getting the will do's to shift to do what you will? I mean, not do what you will, but like, status quo, right?
Yeah, like hiring can do, the capabilities. That's where I believe that's where they start relying on the resume and, that past experience way too much. Now, I'll look at a person's resume and see, okay, what's their relevant experience? But the relevant experience really has little indication on how well they would operate in this role or in this particular role. Some organizations truly rely on that. And I mean, I remember going back to the day again, our business model at the stock brokerage firm I worked at was the 80% turnover revolving door. Put them through the grinder. 80% of our people were going to turn over every 6 months, and we just had to recruit. And then, but that's a waste of human capital. So I've seen it, generally speaking, organizations are trying to get better at it. There are few who are truly incredible at it. Amazon, AWS has one of the most rigorous, recruiting, onboarding processes that I've ever heard of. And I've got friends who work over at AWS, and what they had to go through is like a 9-month interview process. And, it's just, I was like, man, that's amazing. And that's what they're doing. They're testing your resolve. Do you really want to be a part of this team? This is what we're about. This is our team. Do you really want to be a part of it? Because once you're on it, we're going to do everything that we can to make you successful. And so that they're the gold standard, I believe, from anything that I've heard. And there are others that do nearly as well. The Salesforces, the Microsofts, a lot of those now. Younger organizations, smaller organizations are having a hard time with this because they just think, put out a resume, hire some people, find some people who have capabilities on their resume. Let's see if we like them, and then then we'll let them on the bus, and we'll give them their seat on the bus. And they're kind of missing the underlying that, if you're going to hire salespeople, what are salespeople great at? Selling. And they're best at selling themselves. So especially when trying to hire salespeople, you've got to have a pretty good, BS detector. You got to be able to smell it pretty quick and be able to call people on it.
No, I agree. I think that, there are plenty of examples of organizations that are evolving, rapidly with the times, right? They get it. They're making the proper pivots and adjustments. Some of your startups are a bit more quicker because they're not dealing with a lot to, like I say, it's harder to steer Titanic than it is a speedboat, right? So it's, that's kind of what goes into it. I also think that because when you start growing and you start trying to figure out things, because there's not a true understanding of what goes into the process. And this is, where obviously we'll take the shift here when it talks about the process of it all, right? Building a healthy funnel. The turn off or the 80% churn, I think is twofolded, or threefolded. I'll say the first one is willingness to go through the hard, arduous work, right? Willingness to put yourself through the grind, to go through all the highs and lows, and to still bring your best foot forward every single day, and not cheat the system, not, do that. That's one part of it. I think the second part of it is that the profession is not valued, and it shows up numerically. So it's like, when you think like, well, why are we here? When you start comparing, and everybody can make a case, and it's not an issue of necessarily salary requirements, but it is an issue of, do you understand what it really takes to get the person that you're looking for, right? Like, if you want to hire Michael Jordan, that's fine. You can get a Mike, but you got to understand what comes with Michael Jordan. You got to pay Mike, right? Like, you can't just get Mike and be like, I'm gonna give him Scottie Pippen salary. You know, like it doesn't. No diss to Scottie. Scottie. I don't want you to come at me, man. You were underpaid your whole time as a Bull, so no diss. But I'm just saying, like, you just got to understand what it takes to really have that type of talent, you know, in your wheelhouse. But I think the third thing, and this is where the strategy comes into it, is a lot of times there is a lack of awareness on the proper steps, the tools, building a healthy funnel. Because any true hunter will never give you all our secrets because it takes too long.
What's up? I'm super pumped. Just got done with another workout. It's your boy CVMK33. Connect me on Instagram and on the business page at CVMK_global. You know how I get through it. You know how I get that pump looked. Best pre-workout on the market. www.cvmkglobal.store.
That's right.
To develop this, brand, this trust factor in the environment. You know, I can't just give you my book of business or my business cards because it took me forever to get this. But there are things that every hunter has to do to maintain and to grow.
Yeah.
If you just, and obviously you don't want to give all your trade secrets away, but if you could just give us a couple things that every hunter should have in their bag.
Well, first of all, I would say the very first necessity to keep that healthy funnel is the mindset, the belief, and the practice that it's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
You don't just put some stuff in it, once a week or once a month, or hey, it's getting a little low, I better put some more in there. It's an everyday thing. So that's if there's a secret that I will give away for free, it is schedule your prospecting time, your hunting time, whatever your hunting is, schedule it. Schedule it like you would a workout. Mm-hmm. Schedule it like, you would any other thing that's important. I still coach youth athletics, and, I tell them, I tell these track athletes that I coach on a regular basis, and I tell the same thing that I tell my salespeople is that if it's important, you do it every day. Mm-hmm. Every day. And as you build that habit, it'll get better, it'll get easier, and you'll get more and more and more of it. It's like it's one of those laws of physics. A body at rest will stay at rest. A body in motion will stay in motion. Well, it's total momentum. And when you put so much energy into that hunting, into that prospecting, into getting the leads, into closing them, you put so much energy to get that momentum going that young, untrained, inexperienced salespeople, the moment they feel that momentum going forward, it's like, oh, I feel some success, they'll lay off. And they won't realize this. I learned this one the hard way, is that when you feel that momentum going, you keep going. Keep going. You keep pushing. Yeah. Because you don't know what's going to happen with the economy tomorrow, next week, or next month, or next year. And you get it while you can. Make hay while the sun shines, right? Get it while you can, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
No, that's real talk. As we would say in Chicago, that is absolutely true. Because the reality is, once you figure out, okay, you got one, right? It's really easy to rest on your laurels because somehow you convinced yourself like, oh, I have this. But there were so many different steps that was involved that if you don't get back to the effort, you'll go 3, 6, 7 months without another deal. And it's really easy to do that because you took your foot off the gas. Like you can't once you pass up the other car, you got to press harder because it's a weird tango. And I say the thing about sales is, as it is a marathon, it's a track meet too, right? And you got to be both fast and have endurance, and that's hard, because it's either or in life. But if you're going to stay in it, you got to find the right balance. So when we talk about finding the right balance, I always say what destroys any great team is the challenges that come from within. It's never, it's never a competitor. I like to say, if you work for a good organization, you can stay there. The brand is strong. You'll always be in business in some way, shape, or form. What breaks up, internal chemistry is always these internal factors. So culture matters, right? You don't want to have a bunch of type A personalities to the point they don't trust each other. Now there's a lot of toxic activity. Yeah. How do you prevent toxicity in a sales culture?
Well, that is that is the $60 million question, and very few people have figured that one out. But I come from the premise, number one, culture is character.
Mhm.
Okay, it's the character of the organization, and there's a saying I learned a number of years ago is that the character of the kingdom emanates from the king. And so, if there's ever a problem in culture, it is the leader's fault, 100%,
Right.
because they've allowed something to happen. Maybe they didn't stop this, they didn't stop that. But from the leader's standpoint, the first thing that I just find it, incredibly important to do is to lay a foundation of openness and transparency. I've worked in organizations and I have client organizations where they will not discuss organizational goals with the people who are responsible for accomplishing them. That somehow that if we share with them why we want to achieve X, Y, and Z, that they'll get upset, or they think they weren't included, or they won't really buy in. So we're just going to tell them what to do and not really get into the reasons why these are important. Once you have a leadership team acting that way, then it is almost certain it's going to be siloed. People are going to get into their little cliques. Well, I heard this leader say that. Well, I heard that leader say this. And it's going to just start falling apart. And in all candor, the last company at which I was an employee, which was very big on an anti-toxic culture, fell into that trap. They brought the wrong person onto their bus. They fired one president who had hired me a couple years previous to that to build their B2B sales team, and because it was a smaller family-owned organization. They fired him because the family didn't get along with him. He was kind of ambitious in his goals, and they brought in somebody that had worked there previously, who was a friend of the family, who they felt they could trust, who they thought understood them. But she was the most divisive, secretive person I have ever met. And she just she basically, whether she did it on purpose or not, started segmenting people and basically putting them at each other's throats and afraid to talk about anything. And me, I'm very blunt. I'm very candid, and I find it hard to hold my tongue more often than not. And one day I called her out and I said, look, you got to stop doing this. This is ridiculous. We're all in this thing together trying to accomplish a big goal. And you know what? You're telling this group something, you're telling this group something else. And now they're competing against each other and they're kind of, falling at each other's throats. And, the following week I was fired. So, and the funny thing is, a few other, my whole department was fired after that. Within the week or two after that. And then about 4 months after that, she was fired because the organization finally saw it for what it was. And it's like, I told them on the way out the door, I said, look, this is what's happening. This is what, you got to take care of this problem, because if you don't, people are going to leave. And, the biggest problem was not really her. It was the CEO. The CEO who knew what was happening, allowed it to happen, and basically played the ignorance card. Well, what are you talking about? I have no clue what's going on. How can you be sure that that's going? All right, look, this is your company. It's a family company. That's fine. You're going to let somebody destroy it. That's up to you. But, a lot of good people left that organization. It comes, just remember, the character of the kingdom emanates from the king.
The character of the kingdom emanates from the king. So that's going to lead me to my last question. So all that, being true, I have similar stories. It's weird. It's like talking to myself. Because of what you've experienced and what you know, right? What is the future of sales? And then the reason why I asked that question is because let's say your story is more common than what it should be. And maybe that's safe to say. Let's say it's really boils down to culture, because people work for people. It doesn't matter. People work for people, right?
True. So true.
Yeah. And if that being true, and then you have this churn effect and you're losing great talent out there because of these unwanted, undesirable experiences that are just kind of common. What is therefore the future of sales?
Well, I think that's really a two-part answer.
Okay.
In the near term, this is something that we're really seeing right now. Is salespeople waking up to the fact that they don't necessarily have to work for that organization. Okay. I woke up to this fact October 2019. After that company let me go, I just did the pulling out the old playbook, dust off my resume. Okay, start applying for jobs, looking for directors and VP of sales and stuff like that. Went through some interviews, had some great interviews, and then just gobsmacked. It's like, I'm going to be walking right back into the same thing. Why do I want to do that? And that's when I became independent, started this consulting firm. And what we have seen, especially coming out of the pandemic, there's still some reluctance to get back into the office. And up until the last couple of months, that reluctance was basically manifest in professionals being more stringent in dictating the terms under which they would go to work for any company. Say, look, I've got skills. I can do this. I know I can generate revenue. I don't have to show up in an office. I can do it from my home. I can do it virtually from anywhere. So, either you're going to pay me this big salary to come into the office, or you'll give me the freedom and flexibility and you pay me this salary and give me the commissions. So I see a lot more of a flexible sales force in the near term. And I think that's probably over the next couple of years. It really just depends on how this recession starts to play out.
Yeah.
If it gets too harsh, too deep, then I think that that'll be a push back against this sales as a service, flexible sales kind of thing. But the trend will continue the more that the younger workforce who knows their value and who knows that they can do it anywhere wants that freedom. And so I see that for a 3 to 5 year trend, some kind of flexible sales force. Now, if that starts turning into an Uber type of economy for sales, where if Web 3.0 and the NFT and all of our work becomes an NFT product, starts happening over 5 to 8 years out, I don't know. But I do believe this. I believe that salespeople now will be more independent, hired guns that are used flexibly for multiple organizations.
Yep.
You may be selling 4 or 5 different products or 4 or 5 different companies because they allow you to do it from your home. And maybe it's all commission, or maybe they give you a little bit of a stipend or something like that. There's going to be a lot more of that. And so companies are going to have to get used to using a flexible sales force and be set up for it and be able to be comfortable with that. So I think that's on the horizon in about 3 to 5 year window.
Scott, you're a prophet. I've always said that. I said, look.
I like profit.
That's it. I like it. FIT and PhD. And what I mean by that, I said if the thing doesn't shift correctly, the mercenary route is going to be a real thing. Like, hey, I'm a hired gun. You bring me in for a project. Here's the flat rate plus.
Yeah. I saw this happening for some of my customers back in 2008, 2012. Oil and gas. I'm in Houston. Oil and gas. It was the great resignation, or the great shift change. That's what they called it.
Yeah.
All the baby boomers going to retire, and then of course the financial crisis, and they had to come back. But what I was witnessing were these highly specialized engineers and other trades craftsmen who were retiring, and because they took this expertise with them out the door, the company was like, well, I'll use an example. A soils engineer who was their only job was to test the soil at the bottom of the ocean where all those drilling equipment goes, right? He walks out the door of a company. He was, a $90,000 a year guy with stock options. He walks out the door of the company. The company no longer knows how to do it. Like, how we got to find somebody like this. They hired him back as a consultant for like $3,000 a day. So that is the model. It will happen because it has happened before. And I'm already seeing and bringing on board some very experienced salespeople who like, hey, look, I already rep this product and I already rep this. Tell me about what you do, Scott, because that sounds very interesting. I was like, well, here's what we do, and here's how it pays, and yeah, it's commission only. They're like, okay, yeah, that's something I want to work into my, into my little, utility belt of things to sell. I think there's going to be more of that, more of it.
Hey, pay attention. This is a truth, something that is a real possibility. The thing about disruption is disruption ultimately disrupts, right?
Yeah.
So if the pivot does not happen correctly, the mercenary route is a real reality for a lot.
Yep. The hunters will hunt for themselves using other people's weapons.
The hunters will hunt for themselves using other people's weapons. I like that. I want to end on that quote. Scott, if they wanted to reach out to you, connect with you, say, hey, look, I want to bring you in, I want to bring your team in, how can they get in touch with you?
Best way is go to my website, paulsencoaching.com. That's PAULSEN coaching.com. Got a button right there, right on the front of the page, says book a call, contact us. You'll get right through.
Y'all connect with him. Connect with Scott, paulsencoaching.com. Hit him up, solicit, go to the website, schedule a time to meet, because you want your organization to grow. You want the right individuals. You want real hunters. Remember, they will utilize your own weapons and hunt for themselves.
That's
right.
right.
Don't want that to happen. So, paulsencoaching.com. I want to thank my guests. I want to thank everybody out there who's listening. Remember, connect with me, YouTube, CV Space K. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's on Apple Podcasts, Anchor Podcast, where all the podcasts are heard. Obviously, go to www.cvnkglobal.store, Instagram, CVNK33, and CVNK_global. Until next time, guys. Thanks.